Hey there, seekers and shapeshifters, healers and expanders. Welcome to the Embodied Spirit Uncensored. I'm Nicole D'Alessandro, and I am here to guide you through an in-depth experience like no other, channeled from higher wisdom through me directly to you. This is a place for those who dare to delve deeper, who crave transformation beyond the conventional, and who are ready to embrace the mystical union of science and spirit. Here at the Embodied Spirit, we don't just scratch the surface, we dive into the very depths of existence. Prepare to be challenged, to change, and to elevate into a new version of yourself. We're inviting you into an entirely new world, a realm that extends far beyond your physical being. So if you're ready to transform your understanding and awaken to your true spirit, you're in the right place. Let's embark on this profound journey together. Welcome to Embodied Spirit Uncensored. I'm Nicole D'Alessandro, your show host, and today I'm going to give you an insight into what it looks like when you join Embodied Spirituality, my no bullshit mentoring program. Originally, when I started writing that program, it was channeled from a team of the Galactic Council or an Ascension team. So most of that program I've channeled through energy and spirit and basically sat down, and the draft copy was the original program. There's 12 modules. There is so much in those modules. Part 1, which is the first 6 months, is all about self. It's all about expansion, ascending, transcending. And if you don't know those words, I'll save them for another conversation because there's a lot to get through today. But it's really about accelerating your growth and living into your highest values, living into a really beautiful life that maybe you've always dreamed about but never thought that you could reach. It's about reaching your fullest potential. And part 1 is about finding deep comfort and wisdom in your gifts as a human and as a soul, and connecting yourself with mind, body, spirit practices. How that looks is when we translate that into our life, it looks like better conversations, integrity, ability to step more into your honest truths. A lot of my clients end up making a lot more money if that's of interest to you. They land better positions in their workplaces. Their relationships with their partners improve. The conversations are far richer, more joyful, and more meaningful. Their relationships with their children are developing and expanding. Their ability to support others and step into their leadership. That is part 1. Part 2 is all about translating that into community and interweaving the sciences and the spirituality perspectives that we bring into the program, and recognizing that they both one in the same. And you learn how to speak a language that fits your life. No good going out fluffy and woo-woo into society if your cohort or your community and you don't have that background and that yearning for that. You might speak more the sciences or the more logic aspects of self. So part 2 is learning how to interrelate part 1 of self with other, and how you can speak and lean into more vulnerable places and have a different understanding around your world and the unity of it, and the collaborations and the motivations that drive success, that drive community, that drive history. So it's a really beautiful interweaving, the second part. So when I first wrote this program 3 years ago, it was, like I said, the draft copy, and I've kept that original information because it was channeled and it was very powerful. When you sign up, you get the evergreen self-paced, pre-recorded lessons to go with it. So you get 2 lessons a month. You also get 12 modules. Some of them are heavier and weightier than others, but they're very beautiful, light. You can do them daily. You can read something out of the resource list. There's a really big resource list. There's also YouTube information. There's movement practices. There's breathwork practices. There's teachings if you want to go into the energetics or the healing space, or you want to bring this capacity, a multidimensional view, into the leadership that you are already in, or if you want to be in the background. So that's pretty much the evergreen self-paced program. You get recordings, you get modules, you get resources, you get readings, and you get a guide that is a weekly guide. So how to navigate and tackle this so you do actually get the fullness out of the program. A lot of my clients, when they join the program, they still want access to me one-on-one. That is getting really challenging right now as my business grows. I do have availability, but very, very limited availability for one-on-one. So a lot of the students, when they went into the program, they decided that they would also work with me one-on-one alongside, and that has worked beautifully. Time and budget and energy and efforts, it doesn't always align with people. So what I decided to do was bring in a monthly masterclass. And I'm a big believer, we are always evolving, and so is myself, and so is the program. Rather than change the program, because I really love the program, and it was channeled from high wisdom counsel, an ascension team of very high caliber. So I didn't want to change that or confuse that. I've kept that the same so that people can work at that. And originally, you could only join the monthly masterclasses if you had already signed up for Embodied Spirituality. I'm happy to say you can now join the monthly masterclasses for a ridiculous fee. At the moment, it's $97 a month, and you get access, and this is how it looks. You get access to a worksheet, an audio, and some other resources every month. And then we jump on a live masterclass call where I transmit energy, and they're heavily rooted in either the universal laws or what's going on in our workings right now. And I relate them back to some of the embodiment practices in the program. So originally you couldn't join that. Now I've opened that up to the broader community, and it's a beautiful access point that is affordable, that is most people can find 2 hours a month or at least an hour a month. You also get the recordings to that access. And if you wanted to bring it all in, when you sign Embodied Spirituality for the first 12 months, you get free access to those monthly masterclasses as well as the program and all the recordings. So it's I would highly encourage anyone, if they're wanting to accelerate into 2025 or into their future, wherever you're at in this time space continuum listening, to do both. However, if you're not sure and you want to dip your toes in, you want to get a feel, then come on board for the monthly masterclasses. So what I've done for this podcast episode is I wanted to invite you into what it looks like in this world. You're only getting a snippet. So what I'm going to share with you is the recording of the lead up to the monthly masterclass. And what that looks like is we focused on, it's masterclass 4, and it is related to the law of rhythm and the cyclical seasons of life. And it also relates to, and has been, if you were to get into the masterclasses, which I'm not going to share this part, but Anushka, who is a beautiful ancient Navajo medicine woman who I channeled, who came through in 2021, I think it was, and she has written a module on integration and grounding into earth medicine in the Embodied Spirituality program. Hope I'm not confusing you. So she channeled this beautiful module 3 of Embodied Spirituality, and she dropped back in for Masterclass 4. You're not going to get her transmission. She also joined me with her father, who is a holy man in the ancient Navajo traditions, and they led the community on a beautiful ancestral healing journey into a ley line and a beautiful portal under the ocean floor. If you want access to that, you would need to get in touch, and I have a beautiful offering for that, but we are not going to go there. So that is the actual masterclass. What I'm giving you is the prerequisite reading or listening that the students have to listen to before they joined that masterclass. I hope you enjoy it. And if you have any questions, please do get in touch with me and let me know if there is anything that you need clarifying around this, because all you're really getting today is the lead up to the masterclass, so the worksheet audio and the teachings of the law of rhythm in relation to the cyclical nature of life through Anushka's lens. Welcome to our monthly mastermind. Holy fuckballs. When I had Anushka and her dad drop in, I had no idea where I'd be guided to. And this is another Hurt Your Brain read. And as you know, I'm all about delivering you with a fuck ton of added value and information. And these masterminds are an evolution of the Embodied Spirituality program. And this is probably more like a module rather than just a read. So I decided that I would speak to it as well as give you the opportunity to read it. Read it, don't read it, listen to it, don't listen to it. My encouragement is that you lean all in and you work through the journal prompts and activities included over the coming month, alongside Module 3, which is with Anushka, and see how you go. But it's a really beautiful integration, this topic, and I have considered so many aspects of the law of rhythm. And just before we start, I want to remind you that just reading something isn't embodiment. You must engage with the practices. And of course, not all of this information is going to be of interest to you. However, I always want to add and offer you a rich, diverse, added value to the teachings that I bring, that I have, and I honor that this richness is going to allow you to take what you need and leave the rest. So I have given you the opportunity to listen, to read. If you want to skip either, that's up to you. However, again, if you want long-term sustainable change, do the job, work with it, go all in, do this. You've invested your time and money into it. So have a crack at it and keep coming back to it. This is a lifelong resource. And as you know, reading the written word, speaking it, listening to it, and writing it is where true embodiment is at. And we must always be considering learning and teaching at the same time. So what that means is I want you to be talking about this program, about the things that you take, not word for word, not necessarily recommending me or the work that's in it, but what you've learned. Get really good at storytelling and articulating to your community how these modalities or how these stories and teachings have shaped your life. And that's a skill in of its own, is being able to reflect on the last few years, this last 6 months, where you've started, where you are now, and how that's shaped you is a skill. And the more you're able to do that, the more you're able to get to the guts of who you are and actually be able to celebrate the parts of you that has come so far. So if you aren't doing both, reading, writing, speaking, teaching, and learning at the same time, you're not really truly embodying this entire program, and you are at the depths of your potential. So let me begin by introducing this idea that both Navajo and Aboriginal Australian spiritual traditions share a profound connection to nature, rhythmic harmony, and the belief that human beings are interconnected with the land, animals, and cosmos. However, they express these connections in unique ways based on their respective culture, landscapes, and worldviews. So we're going to be exploring this comparison and how they connect to the law of rhythm, a concept often linked to the cyclical patterns of nature and the flow of energy. And because of my rounded skill set and the studies that I've embarked on over the last 3 decades, I haven't just included Indigenous Aboriginal history and ancient Navajo. I've brought in quite a few other, not modalities, I don't like that word, but other ways in which you might like to take interest in the law of rhythm and how it relates to your life, how it relates to culture, belief systems, religion, yogic, esoteric teachings. So I've brought in lots of different examples of how the law of rhythm and embodied spirituality and you relate to the earth. And why has this come about? A couple of weeks ago, Anushka dropped in with her dad, and I'm going to give you some context that's not in the writings. And I'll probably speak to this, so it might be a repetition if you are listening to this in the call. But the foundation was Anushka's dropped in. I've been working with her quite closely, and so have a lot of students over the last few years. And she drops in when I need anchoring or grounding, very maternal, reminds me of Grandmother Willow. If you haven't seen Pocahontas, the beautiful tree, the willow tree. She dropped in and she had a very masculine, strong energy with her. And the energy introduced themselves as Anushka's father, a holy man, an ancient medicine man. And he wanted to speak to this ebb and flow, or this balance between the masculine and the feminine energy. And what I got to see in the symbolic or the symbolism of their relationship was sometimes the imbalances, which was quite surprising to me, because what I saw in Anushka is a very different version of her to what I embarked on when she's on her own. And I had to sit with that and ask some of the questions around what they were showing me in the sense of feeling into their energies. And what I got was Anushka stepping into this childlike daughter energy where father comes in and is quite masculine and I want to say overpowering, but overpowering with a sense of protection and integrity and leadership as a holy man. What I saw is there was not an imbalance, but a standing down in Anushka, because Anushka is a very wise, ancient, beautiful comfort. And when I feel them together, there's this sense that Anushka almost loses herself, which isn't the case. What that means is when they are showing me these symbolic messages, they're giving me insight into what can happen and how we shapeshift and change through the seasons, through our own hormone seasons. I haven't added our hormone seasons in this, but I'm going to have Mel Perner maybe have a conversation with us on the law of rhythm relating to the hormonal fluctuations and changes that come with being a woman. And I apologize to you men, I haven't got any context right now, that's just dropped in, but I might do some research on how you guys might go through different stages with your hormones and how they fluctuate. I'm going off on a tangent. So that's how this came about. And then the Indigenous Aboriginal part came about from a couple of days before Anushka dropped in with her dad. I was at a beautiful park that was on sacred land, and I was listening to a beautiful elder speak to the land and the meaning and the symbolism and the spiritual assets, and writing a love letter to this land. And when Anushka dropped in, I sort of knew and had this beautiful elder in the back of my ear speaking to, I want this brought into this topic. So that's how this came about, this teaching and this mastermind. So buckle up, put some time aside. I'm already 8 minutes in fucking rambling and I haven't even gotten to the real depth of this. So Navajo spirituality and rhythm. The Navajo people deeply revere the holy people who represent the spiritual forces in nature, which makes sense why her father has such power over or around her. Their spiritual system is based on harmony, which is balance, hozo, I think I'm saying that right, and the intricate rhythms of the life that must be maintained. The law of rhythm in Navajo thought can be understood through their ceremonies, rituals, and the seasonal cycles they honour. So Navajo thought can be understood through their ceremonies, and their ceremonies and sand paintings are an expression of rhythmic cycles that connect people with the holy people. For instance, the creation of sand paintings used in healing rituals reflects a flow of energy that mirrors the patterns found in nature, like sacred geometry. These rituals must be performed in rhythm with nature, often aligning with phases of the moon, seasons, or specific times of the day. Connection to nature. The Navajo view their environment as an essential part of their spiritual practice. The mountains, the water, the animals, and the four sacred directions all represent different aspects of the natural rhythm that Navajo people align themselves with. This understanding ties into the Navajo belief that harmony and balance must be maintained, not only within themselves, but also within the land. These directions also relate to opening and closing of the chakras, opening and closing of the circles. You might open and close the worldly earth energy. If you wanted to channel earth energy, you could open through north, south, east, and west, depending on where you're situated in. You would have to do some more research on that. I don't have that information in front of me. Or you could do it intuitively. Navajo people also engage in songs and chants, and they play a crucial role in ceremonial life. These are expressions of rhythmic patterns that resonate through the cycles of nature and the holy people, believed to bring healing and alignment with spiritual forces. The cyclical nature of these practices highlights the Navajo's awareness of the law of rhythm, ensuring they stay in sync with the universe's natural cycles. So when we come to the Aboriginal Australian spirituality and natural rhythm, like Navajo people, they hold a deep spiritual relationship to the land, viewing it as a living being filled with ancestral spirits. And you would have heard of the dream time or dreaming, and it's central to their worldview, symbolising the ancient time when ancestral beings created the world. Aboriginal spirituality also reflects the law of rhythm through storytelling, ceremonies, and their connection to the land's natural cycles. They have songlines and dreamtime stories that are passed down through generations, guiding Aboriginal people's understanding of the land and their place in it. Songlines are particularly significant in representing the rhythmic journey of the ancestral beings along the landscape. These songlines, which are sung and followed also along specific paths, reflect the cyclical nature of life, creation, and the interconnectedness of all things. They have ceremonies. These Aboriginal ceremonies, like Navajo rituals, are deeply tied to the rhythms of the natural world. Ceremonial dances, music, body paintings are performed in rhythm with seasonal changes, migrations of animals, and celestial cycles. Their connection to the law of rhythm is embedded in the belief that everything from the weather to human life follows natural patterns and cycles which must be honoured and respected. And that is the same as embodiment to you. There will be moments where you feel deeply connected and there's a self-awareness that is outstanding and gives you a sense of power, clarity, a sense of peace, a sense of confidence. And then there'll be moments where you feel like it's all been ripped apart. If you are moving into the space of mediumship or you are wanting to step more into your psychic awareness, I know a lot of you that are channeling energies and working with ancestors or people who have passed. There will be moments where your guides or dead people will drop in who have passed on, and it will be really clear, and then there'll be moments of still and silence. This is the natural rhythmic cycle of evolution. So the connection to ancestors and land. Aboriginal people believe that the land holds the spirits of their ancestors, and maintaining harmony with the land is essential for the well-being of the community. This harmony is often expressed in the regularity of natural cycles like birth, life, death, and rebirth, all seen as rhythmic and cyclical. Much like the tides and seasons, the stewardship of the land reflects a deep understanding of nature's cycles and the rhythmic flow of energy between all living things. So the comparison of rhythm in both traditions, the ceremonial rhythms in both cultures use ceremonies to maintain harmony. Navajo sand paintings and chants are used to invoke healing and balance, while Aboriginal ceremonies, often involving dance and song, reflect the cyclical journey of the dreamtime. Both traditions recognise the importance of aligning human actions with the rhythm of the earth. The cosmic rhythm and the cycles for both Navajo and Aboriginal peoples, spiritual practice is not separate from the land or cosmos. This is really important for those of you who float up into the ether, who are looking at astral travelling, who are consumed by ancestral healing in the cosmos. It's happening inside of you because you are the cosmos. So stay grounded and anchored, because these sacred mountains for the Navajo and the sacred sites in Aboriginal Australian embody the earth's energy and require constant respect. Their spiritual traditions emphasize the cyclical nature of life, reflecting the law of rhythm in how everything, nature, life, death, follows cycles. Anushka is really intent on reminding you of this. And you might like to go to Module 3 and read her transmission, because when I wrote that module, I remember it so clearly. I was so confused because I was sitting down to write, because I typically like to float up, and that will relate to my Vata energy. I'm going to read to you a little bit about the doshas, but I have this, I'm more likely to float up than I am to be grounded. It takes work for me to maintain an anchoring into this sacred land. So Anushka is here to remind us of these sacred practices and the rhythmic flow of life through all of the seasons, so that you can stay anchored and embodied in this earth plane and be in these three-dimensional energies of consciousness, and then shifting and oscillating into 4D and 5D. And that just means that you're able to embrace the fullness of your being as you expand and contract. Healing practices in both cultures focus on restoring balance. For the Navajo, illness is often seen as a disruption of balance and rhythm, while Aboriginal healing is often about reconnecting the individual with the land and the ancestors. Both traditions show that when rhythm is disrupted, health and spiritual well-being are compromised. So what I want you to remember is the law of rhythm is a fundamental principle in both Navajo and Aboriginal spiritualities. It governs not only the physical world's natural cycles, but also the flow of spiritual energy and harmony. In both these traditions, ceremonies, rituals, and daily life are expressions of this harmony, reflecting their deep connections to the land, the cosmos, the ancestral forces that shape their existence. By living in accordance with nature's cycles, they maintain balance and foster a deep sense of interconnectedness. So I've also added in this beautiful law of rhythm and how it relates to the masculine, feminine energies and the seasons in the Navajo Aboriginal ancestry. So this first section is quite heavily rooted in Anushka's ancestry and the sacred land of where I'm from, which is Australia. So if you are not from either of those, that's okay. I hope that you can relate this to wherever you are in the world. And if you have Indigenous underpinnings, please, share this information. And if there is any topics that you want me to speak to, I do this with utmost respect, and I really want to acknowledge these traditional landowners, because without them we wouldn't be who we are, and we wouldn't understand and know a lot of the roots of our earth. So this is a very respectful conversation I want to have, and I'm mindful that this is me just talking to some of these concepts that I have had drop in and I've researched. However, if you have these beautiful qualities and underpinnings and cultural history, please do share them. So the law of rhythm is a universal principle that states everything moves in cycles. Life, energy, emotions, and nature all follow rhythmic patterns of ebb and flow, rise and fall, much like the rhythms of the seasons or the moon phases. This law governs not only the physical world, but also the unseen forces, including our inner energies and the balance of masculine and feminine aspects within each of us. In both Navajo and Aboriginal traditions, this law of rhythm is reflected in how the natural world is understood, especially regarding the seasons, cycles of life, and the interplay between masculine and feminine energies. The law of rhythm and the dance of feminine energies is deeply intertwined, because masculine and feminine energies exist in all beings regardless of gender. These energies are complementary forces that maintain balance within us and the universe. Understanding their dance helps us align with the natural cycles that affect both our personal lives and the wider world. So the masculine energy is associated with the active, external, giving force. It is dynamic, protective, structured, and often linked to daylight, the sun, and the energy of doing. For me, in yogic traditions, I like to refer it to it, and it's going to be repetitive down this. This is what embodiment is. And hopefully, as we talk more and more about it, it will start to land in your nervous system and in your brain structure and in your thinking processes. So don't need to think that you have to know all this. It honestly will drop in and you will take what you need and leave the rest. But in yoga, and in my own understanding, and now in meeting Anushka's father and the structure of his power as a holy man, think of it like the infrastructure. So in the feminine, it's associated with the receptive, internal, nurturing force. It's intuitive, it's flowing, it's creative, and often linked to the night, the moon, and the energy of being. So feminine is the energy required for cell division. Once a cell has divided into a fully functioning human being or a fully developed, formed being, the masculine energy creates the infrastructure. So if we didn't have the masculine, we'd be a blob of blood and meat on the floor. So think of the feminine energy is the energy required to create the cells, and the masculine energy is the energy required to create the infrastructure. So the scaffolding and the building blocks of structure that is created with a system within a system so that you can fully function as a whole. Hope that makes sense. So together these energies move rhythmically, much like the tides, the lunar cycle, or the changing seasons. And in the context of spiritual and healing work, this balance is key to personal ascension and growth. The Navajo worldview of this masculine feminine is seen as integral to Hozo, which is harmony, the principle of living in balance with nature and one's community. The masculine represents the protective, action-orientated forces, while the feminine embodies nurturing, creative energies. So we're not reinventing the wheel here, right? Across what I love about this, and in the background, where I realize I'm leaning more into these underlying messages through embodiment, is the law of one, this unity, that coming back home to wholeness in union with the collective, universal consciousness means that all of these universal laws will always come back to that law of one. And when you start to listen to all of these teachings through different belief systems, different languages, different cultures, different traditions, you will hear a very common message through all of them, including when we speak to masculine and feminine energy across all belief systems. They typically share and represent the same thing. What we understand, and this is a common dialogue, is that both must work together, like the sun and the moon, to maintain natural order. And that's from the Navajo. And the Aboriginal tradition, in the dream time, it speaks of the origin stories of creation where the masculine and feminine energies of the ancestral beings shape the land. Aboriginal spirituality also honours the duality of these energies with rituals often celebrating the rhythmic dance between creation, which is feminine, like I said, the cellular splitting or creation of cells, and the protection or structure, which is the scaffolding. Same story, right? Just a different conversation and a different expression through dance and rhythm. Aboriginal elders, both men and women, guide their communities through these cycles, showing how the energies must be honoured in every stage of life. In both cultures, the seasons represent this dance, with the masculine and feminine energies shifting as the earth moves through its cycles. So the 4 seasons and their connection to the masculine and feminine energies. If you need to take a pause, take a breath, go and ground and come back to this. I've given you a fuck ton of information here. I got very excited about this topic, and it's going to be evident when you listen or read this information. And just put it down, come back, put it down, come back. But again, on a simple view, it really speaks to the same. So in spring embodies the rising energy of masculine action as life returns to earth. It is a time of planting, setting intentions, and new growth. In the Navajo tradition, spring represents the time when the masculine energy of the sun reawakens the earth. Ceremonies during this time honour the planting and preparation for the harvest, guided by both men and women working together. In the Aboriginal tradition, this season reflects renewal and rebirth, a time for the land to reawaken. It's time to call on the ancestors for guidance and to tend to the land with care. The masculine energy of the Dreamtime spirits is invoked to provide structure for new growth. So, in both traditions, spring is seen as a masculine construct because we're looking for structure in creation. Summer, masculine is in full power and the feminine is in nurturing. So in spring it was masculine is rising, feminine is creating. So in summer, it's the peak of masculine energy, sunlight, heat, and action, and the feminine energy nurtures the life that is growing, providing water, shade, and care. And that's in Navajo tradition. During summer, ceremonies often honour the sun's power and its role in the harvest. The masculine force is celebrated for bringing abundance, while the feminine force nurtures and ensures the crop's growth. And in the Aboriginal tradition, the summer season is a time for active ceremonies under the sun, recognising the spirits that protect the community. And the masculine energy is seen in the hunt and the gathering of food, while feminine energy nurtures the community and the lands. In autumn, there's a masculine receding and a feminine gathering and harvesting. And the masculine energy begins to wane, the feminine energy rises into full power. It is a time of harvest, gathering, preparing for the stillness of winter. In the Navajo, autumn is the time for gratitude and balance between giving and receiving. Navajo people honour the land and their ancestors for the bounty they've provided. And the feminine energy of gathering and storing is essential to sustain life through the winter. In the Aboriginal tradition, autumn is a time of preparation as Aboriginal people gather food and resources, storing them for colder months, and the feminine wisdom of sustainability and care for the land becomes crucial, balancing the masculine energy of previous efforts. In winter, feminine is in power and masculine is resting. And the energy of this winter is the time when feminine energy is full power, masculine energy retreats to rest and regenerate. It is a time of introspection, quiet, and deep connection to intuition and spirit. In the Navajo, winter is a sacred time for storytelling, spiritual reflection. The feminine energy of nurturing through darkness is celebrated, and the masculine energy rests in preparation for the renewal of spring. Ceremonies often honour the ancestors during this time, seeking their wisdom. In the Aboriginal traditions, winter in Aboriginal culture is a time of hibernation, deep connection to the dream time, and gathering around the fire. The feminine energy of intuition and storytelling is honoured as the elders share the knowledge of the past and the mysteries of creation. I've added a few links in the document that you're going to receive, so do have a flick through. And it's only for those of you who want more information, or if you get a direct calling to the Indigenous ancient practices related to land, you are going to want to probably click on this. Like I've said, I've given you a lot of information. This is my life's work. What you do with it is up to you. You'll know what your soul is calling you home to. So there will be some things that will speak to one of you, 10 of you, hundreds of you, and there will be some that will speak to none of you. And there is something for everyone in this program. So take what you need, leave the rest. So I'm going to speak to you about the yogic concepts and the law of rhythm. And as we know, the law of rhythm states that everything moves in cycle, including energy, emotions, all ebbs and flows. So in yogic tradition, this law aligns with the understanding of cosmic cycles and energies that govern our physical, mental, and spiritual bodies. And this dance between masculine, which in yoga we relate to as Shiva, and feminine Shakti energies, and the influence of the gunas, the balance of the doshas, and the flow of vayus, and the rise of kundalini energy through the chakras all reflect the dynamic rhythmic movement that exists within and around us. I've left out the kundalini aspect of this, and I'm going to speak to this later down the track because we're already 30 minutes in. I did have it in here, but I just looked at it and went, oh my God, you guys will just get either bored or overwhelmed, and that's not embodiment. So let's explore a little bit of these. And again, if something in here interests you, go deep into curiosity and research or ask me. I have plenty of information on it, but I'm giving you tasters so that you can embody what speaks to you. So Shiva and Shakti, the masculine and feminine divine dance. In yogic philosophy, Shiva and Shakti represent the two primary forces of creation. Shiva is the masculine, associated with consciousness, stillness, and transcendence, while Shakti is the feminine, associated with power, movement, and creation. Shiva represents the transcendent, formless aspect of the universe. He is the pure consciousness, the ground of being. Shiva, the masculine, is the silent observer, the container for Shakti's dynamic power. His energy is aligned with stillness, peace, structure, much like the seasons of winter and autumn, where reflection and resting allow for regeneration. Shakti, on the other hand, which is feminine, represents the dynamic, creative force that gives birth to all movement and form. She is the energy that animates the universe, the force behind the creation, the growth and destruction. Shakti aligns with the spring and summer seasons as the energy of life begins to rise and blossom. So this is a bit different to the other teachings. She also represents the cycles of birth, growth, death, and rebirth, reflecting the rhythmic patterns that govern nature and our lives. Together they form the rhythm of creation. Shiva is the potential, and Shakti is the realization of that potential. Their dance mirrors the law of rhythm as the balance between activity and rest, masculine and feminine, remains essential for growth and harmony. I've also added a story on Shakti and Shiva if you wanted to click on the link in the document. How does this relate to Shiva and Shakti Navajo Aboriginal traditions? So the Navajo principle of Hozo, or harmony and balance, and the Dreamtime stories of creation from Aboriginal spirituality speak to the idea of balance and the cyclical nature of existence, much like the interplay of Shiva and Shakti. So this is where it might get a little bit much for you. Again, take a breath. You have every opportunity to write down questions as you come up against some of these forces. But these are the forces that govern all nature. But I'm speaking to you through the teachings and the learnings that I have in my belt. So the gunas we're meeting up to next. The gunas are the rhythmic qualities of nature. In yogic philosophy, the gunas are the three fundamental qualities that pervade all of nature. And they represent different aspects of energy and consciousness, and always in flux, reflecting the law of rhythm in how they balance and shift in our lives. So if you haven't worked it out yet, the universal laws that I'm heavily going into, not so evident in our modules of embodied spirituality, but this is the evolution of that program that I wrote a few years ago. So you are getting the best of both worlds. You get the original and you get the expressed, expanded version through my teachings now, because I have a lot more of a skill set. So when I speak esoteric through yogic philosophy, or I speak through the religious philosophy and underpinnings, or I speak through the sacred landowners or any cultural beliefs, I'm still speaking to the rhythmic nature of life and the conscious elements of universe in us, around us, and of us. So the language is different. I'm speaking to you in multiple languages because I'm multidimensional and I bridge the gap between science and spirit, but they all speak the same. What I want you to know is, as long as you understand these laws and the rhythms that govern life and unity and nature and seasons and masculine feminine energy, you're going to be fine. Just embody the language that works for you. Coming back to the gunas, now this isn't in the script. The gunas are the three fundamental qualities. They represent the law of rhythm and they balance and shift in our lives. So take a breath. The three gunas are sattva. Sattva is associated with peace, clarity, and balance, purity, harmony, and light. It is the energy of stillness and reflection, much like Shiva in terms of rhythm. Sattva is aligned with moments of balance and harmony, akin to the peak of summer or the reflective time of autumn, when everything is in balance and we harvest the fruits of our labour. Rajas is activity, passion, and motion. It's the fiery parts. Rajas is the energy of action, movement, and desire, and it represents the rising force of Shakti, the feminine. and it governs times of great activity and intensity. In terms of rhythm, Rajas aligns with spring and the early stages of summer, where life force and energy are growing and driving new ideas and action. So we have Rajas and Sattva so far, and then we have Tamas. Now, Tamas is inertia, that darkness, that stagnant stuckness sometimes that we feel, but it also represents rest. Tamas is the quality of heaviness, rest and inertia. It governs times of dormancy and decay, but it also provides the necessary stillness for renewal. We need all three. In terms of rhythm, Tamas aligns with winter, and that's the time of rest, hibernation, and going within. And I speak to a lot of you, including myself. Winter is sometimes a place where we can tend to get depressed and a bit heavier in our sense of self. We want to eat stodgier foods. We don't want to go anywhere. We don't want to move. We feel frozen. And that is a cyclical part of being, and it's very important. You might put on some few kilos to hold the insular heat and things like that. But in the context of spiritual practices, balancing the gunas is key to aligning with the rhythms of nature. So quite a lot through these teachings, through the Navajo, through Aboriginal, Indigenous, through yogic philosophy, is balance, the ebbs and flows and riding the waves of life. Excess rajas, which is the fire, can lead to burnout, while excess tamas, which is the heavy hibernating, can lead to stagnation. The goal is to cultivate sattva, a sattvic energy, which is finding harmony between action and stillness. When we reflect on the Navajo and Aboriginal traditions, these ceremonies that often aim to restore balance in Navajo ceremonies are because energies are out of alignment, much like balancing the gunas in yoga. And in Aboriginal spirituality, this also reflects this balance through their rituals that honour both the action-orientated aspects of life through masculine and the resting or reflective moments of the feminine. So see how there's a conversation just using different language about these pervading elements that are within and around us that we're constantly seeking to balance out. I'm going to give you a little bit more if you're ready for it. The doshas and vayus. So we've spoken about gunas. Now we're going to look at doshas, which are rhythms within the body, and the vayus are the air and how the air and prana, life force, fluctuates and moves through our body. So the doshas in Ayurveda traditions represent the constitution of the body, mind and spirit, and they play a significant role in our internal rhythms. I hope this gives you a bit of an embodied understanding of why sometimes we do feel and we're so hard on ourselves and we're in those stagnated moments and we want to create a judgment on them. I hope this gives you permission to just have a little bit more deeper understanding and compassion for yourselves as you learn to balance and shift through these laws. So each dosha corresponds to different elements and is governed by certain rhythmic patterns. I am Vata, Pitta. Vata is related to air and ether. It governs movement, breath, creativity. It is the dosha most aligned with air and the mind. In terms of rhythm, Vata is light, quick and dynamic, like the creative, intuitive energy of Shakti. If you're not grounded, it creates scatteredness. It is where my ADHD mind, if it's not managed, floats up and goes all around, and it leaves me feeling quite flighty. That's Vata. Pitta is fire and water. It governs digestion, so the aid in transformation, ambition. It's associated with fire, drive, focus. It's much like masculine energy of Shiva. I'm Pitta Vata or Vata Pitta, so you will fluctuate a lot between three, and I'll talk to you about the third one, but sometimes we have more one than the other. But the beautiful thing about all of these things I'm talking to you about and the ancient teachings of Navajo and Indigenous traditions as well as yogic philosophies and religion is that there are tools and rituals and practices and prayers that help you balance out these qualities of self. So kapha, earth and water, governs stability, grounding, nourishment. Kapha is aligned with earth, nurturing energy and the feminine. Balancing these doshas is essential for maintaining health and harmony. Just like the law of rhythm, the doshas fluctuate through the day and through the seasons. Aligning with these natural cycles brings balance to the body. And I've asked you, what dosha are you? Do you know? And I've got a link in the document. So really, you're going to have to go and read through a little bit of this if you want some more information on it. Coming to the vayus, we're nearly there. Vayus, on the other hand, represent the 5 movements of prana, which is life force in the body. I haven't been taught in Chinese traditions, so that's why I haven't spoken to. But if you are a Chinese herbalist or you have other teachings underpinning your understanding of life force and the law of rhythm, then you'll be able to relate it back to your own knowledge of this work, because Chinese traditions have their own governance of this philosophy. So the vayus represent the 5 movements of prana in the body. These vayus also operate in rhythmic patterns, reflecting the cycles of life and energy. So the first vayu is the prana vayu, and it's located between the head and the chest area of the body. It governs inspiration, propulsion, so forward momentum, and it's aligned with Shakti's flow. Apana vayu is located in the pelvic region, and it governs downward movement. It's linked to elimination, grounding, reflecting chivas, stabilizing energy. Samana vayu governs assimilation, discernment, inner absorption, consolidation, and it's located around the navel. Udana vayu is the throat area, governing growth, speech, expression, ascension, upward movement. And Vayana is the whole body, governs circulation on all levels and expansiveness and pervasiveness. If you'd like to regulate your physiology and practice a standing 5 vayus practice, I've included a YouTube link there to someone who speaks to this, and you can do some movement to balance out those energy flows. Really powerful stuff. Yogic philosophy is fucking next level. Honestly, you could do a whole research on the vayus or the gunas or the doshas, and you'll be busy for a while. In reflection to these and the Navajo Aboriginal traditions, both cultures hold the breath of energy of the land as sacred. So in Navajo healing ceremonies, breath and rhythm are part of the chants and rituals that restore health. Aboriginal practices, particularly in songlines and ceremonies, involve rhythmic breath and movement that align the body's energies with the natural world. Is your brain hurting yet? Guess what? I haven't finished, but we're nearly there. I've included the sacred sites and the rhythms of the earth, the ley lines, Avalon, Lemuria, Atlantis, and the Druids. I'm not going to speak to this on this because we're already 43 minutes in, but just a quick little thing. Throughout the ages, humanity has been drawn to certain sacred sites. Ley lines are known to hold spiritual power, and they embody the rhythmic flow of the energies earth in a tangible form. And these connecting lands are tuned to the law of rhythm on a deeper level, and they resonate with the earth's natural cycles. Ley lines are like energy meridians, and they crisscross the earth, connecting, and they create portals where veils between the physical and spiritual worlds is thin. Pyramids of Giza, Mount Machu Picchu, Stonehenge, all of those sorts of places. There's a few more. Go and research ley lines if that interests you. I'm not going to speak to this. You can read this. I'm just going to flick through religious and spiritual perspectives on rhythm, hedonism, and embodiment. Hedonism is to do with flow state and finding joy in amongst the bullshit of life. But before I get to that, Navajo, Aboriginal, and yogic traditions and the concept of rhythm offer these spiritual frameworks, the natural ebb and flow of life, and they can be found across many world religions, each offering a unique lens for understanding how we live in harmony with creation. I've also written the concepts of Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, and other traditions to touch on, as well as the role of hedonism, which is the pursuit of pleasure within the context of spiritual rhythm. And these teachings help us to illuminate the balance between living joyfully with purpose, grounded in the natural cycles of existence. I'm not going to read this, but it is very interesting if you would like to touch on the different religions through Judaism and the rhythm of the seasons, Hinduism and the understanding of Dharma, Karma, and the cosmic dance of Shiva. I have also included Islam and the rhythms of the daily practice, and the hedonism, pleasure, and the balance of the senses. So if you are interested in that, go and have a quick read. But are you getting the message yet? Write down any questions you might have or any challenges and frustrations. And these concepts might have provoked any sort of challenges and questions and hurt your brain. And I know some of you don't like writing down. But if you're one of those people that says, oh, I don't do it, I do it in my mind, I'm just going to encourage you that you will far better embody the richness and expand in a more flowing state and rate if you do a little bit of it all. So reflect on Anushka's teachings, consider these little steps, the journal prompts, reflective questions, writing a love letter to the land, set an intention. The journey is going to be beautiful, but it's also going to bring up some things. And the more intent you have, the more you do this work, the more you understand the law of rhythm and the flow, and you have good intentions, the more clarity and the more shift and the more clearing of old ancestral wounds you're going to be likely to have. So I'm going to leave it there. I hope you enjoy this one. I have really enjoyed writing this, and I shall see you soon. Thank you for joining us on the Embodied Spirit Uncensored. Today's journey may have ended, but your personal transformation has only just begun. So keep channeling the insights and energies from our episode. And as you move forward, remember, this podcast is for those who are not just living, but are seeking to live profoundly. Continue to explore, expand and evolve with us. Make sure to follow this series. Connect with us on Instagram at Nicole D'Alessandro Perth, or visit www.nicoledalessandro.com.au for more transformative content. You can also find me on Facebook at Nicole D'Alessandro. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and more importantly, stay batshit crazy as you embody and explore beyond your current realm of existence. I'll see you later for now, and remember, this journey to embodying your spirit is the most significant journey you'll ever undertake.